right, let's see here. Mic 1.
Mic 2.
That looks good. Looks good. I think we're all set. Okay, cool. Thank you everybody for listening. This is the episode. This is episode 3 of the Listening Game podcast. I'm Nolan, and I'm hanging out with my friend Maurice at his house down in Martinez. How's it going, Maurice?
Howdy, Nolan. Thanks for inviting me along.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing this with me.
Anytime.
Do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself at all, like who you are, or what kind of music background you have, or anything?
Sure.
Of that nature?
My name is Maurice. I grew up in the East Bay, lived in Santa Cruz for a bunch of years. I have never formally been a part of the music industry, but I've always just been kind of amateur into music, audiophile stuff, recording bands and whatnot. So, in Santa Cruz, I spent a lot of time recording bands. You may have heard of The Devil Makes Three or Two Gallants. I got to record a couple of live shows for them back in 2004.
I think I played house shows at your house in Santa Cruz with both of those bands back in the day. That's how you and I initially met, was mutual friends in the house.
Exactly. And that was among recording bands. I also like to have them play at my house, and I just love supporting live music in general.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this should be fun. I'm excited. So it's early May right now, May 8th or 9th, something like that.
May 9th.
Okay, May 9th. Thanks. It's been a
May
long
10th.
week. I can't remember exactly what day it is.
But May 10.
Yeah. But 2 weeks ago was National Record Store Day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a holiday I celebrate every year by coordinating with various friends of mine to go to as many different record shops as we can across Northern California and buy as many of the different fun colored vinyl limited edition crazy one-day things that are for sale. And this year you and I coordinated, and I must say you went pretty nuts. I was I have a friend, Jennifer, who lives in San Francisco, and her and I will sync up every year for Record Store Day, and usually she goes to one store. She'll go to the big Amoeba Records in San Francisco. And granted, it's one store, but it's the Amoeba one store, so it's huge, and they get everything. And so I'll give her my list of Record Store Day stuff to get, and she'll give me hers. And I'm up in Sacramento, so I'll drive to like 5 or 6 different stores and grab as much as I can. And she'll go to one Amoeba and grab just as much stuff.
Right.
So I was kind of expecting you to do the same thing when you and I coordinated this year. And I thought, okay, Maurice can go grab stuff out of the East Bay.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, you're going to go to like the Amoeba on Telegraph and and then go on with the rest of your day, and that would be that. And I was pleasantly shocked when I kept getting messages from you saying, all right, I'm done at one store, I'm going to the second one now. Now I'm on the way to the third, and I'm going to go back to that first one later today too. It's like, oh my God, Maurice is totally hardcore about this. It's kind of awesome.
I didn't. I kind of avoided Rasputin's and Amoeba in Berkeley just because. They're fantastic places, but I guess my issue is that they open later in the day, and they're kind of the Walmart of music. Not in a bad way. It's just that I knew that everybody and their mother and their long dead cousin Vinny will be there. There was just no way I was going to get anything there. So I scoped around the East Bay. I didn't want to go into San Francisco myself. And so I scoped around the East Bay for record stores and opening times. And 1, 2, 3, 4 Go Records in Oakland was opening at 8 a.m. They had a signing. They had a gentleman signing for records there from the Stooges. Williamson. I can't remember his first name at this moment. Really cool guy. So I figured, I'll just go there and start the adventure there. And
nice.
I scoped out a few record stores, and that ended up being the lion's share of where I got everything and where I spent most of my time. They had a great selection. So if you're ever in the East Bay, Oakland, Emeryville, Berkeley area, or anywhere thereabouts, definitely check out, I think it's on 40th in Oakland. It's called 1, 2, 3, 4 Go Records.
Nice. I'm always looking for new fun record stores to buy things at. You mentioned Walmart earlier, and I won't actually shop at Walmart ever, but I will happily shop at like Rasputin and Amoeba and buy stuff there. And there's a great indie record store in Davis called Armadillo Music, and I'll go buy stuff from them. And
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Pretty much any of those shops are good. So I was quite happy with the selection of things that came out this year on Record Store Day. There were some serious gems that got released, like those side-by-side 7-inches where two bands would cover the same song.
Really
And there's
cool.
the one that I think you picked up for me with The Cure doing Just Like Heaven on one side, which is obviously their song, and then Dinosaur Jr. doing it on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to checking that out and hearing Dinosaur Jr.'s take on that song, especially because The Cure, they're such a good band, but they're known for being sonically a little bit on the quieter side.
Yeah.
And Dinosaur Jr. is known for being, just bombastically loud. I really want to check out how they do that song. And there's that one. And what else did we
I'm
get?
excited about that one.
Yeah.
I'm very excited from what I picked up from you. I want to hear the Pogues with Joe Strummer live.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm all over that. I really want to hear that. Also, the various Devo recordings that we
definitely
picked up for you. There's a live, I think it's a live picture disc, and then, or no, I don't know. There's a picture disc one, and then there's a live one. That might be separate. I'm just super excited about the Devo stuff too.
Definitely. They're doing a bunch this year. They're putting out different picture discs and live recordings, and I think they just announced some tour dates too, where they're going to play not the typical Devo set of the hits like Gates of Steel and Whip It and whatever, but they're going to do either all or most of the show will be the early art rock college era songs they put out when they first got together as a band.
Oh, man.
They're going to do a show like that in, I want to say in Oakland at the Fox Theater.
Oh, wow.
I might totally be wrong on that, but it's definitely East Bay and coming up. My friend Tony, who did the last podcast with me, was really excited about that. And they have like VIP meet and greet passes available for that too, so you can meet the guys in Devo and get autographs and whatever. And
that sounds kind of dodgy. I'd rather just watch them play.
Really, I might have to respectfully disagree with you on that. I think given the chance to go meet Mark Mothersbaugh and talk shop with him about different synthesizers and whatever, I may very well have to cough up the money and be like, "So, Mark, what kind of keyboard did you use on this song and that song? And how do you do this?" And but I would do that to. That's one of my favorite things to do with musicians, anyways. I like talking gear and
of course,
getting ideas of like, well, what do you what kind of delay pedals do you like to use, or what kind of amp was that you recorded this on, and do you like this piece of equipment and whatever. And
fair enough.
In fact, when I saw Public Image Limited in San Francisco last year,
oh wow.
I ran into their guitar player on the street after the show. I was just leaving the venue, and there he was standing there. This guy named Lou, and the singer in Public Image is Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, and the tour bus was right on the corner, and Lou's there. And I was talking to Lou for like a good 20 or 30 minutes about what kind of amplifiers he used on the tour and what kind of guitars he was playing, and just having a fun music gearhead conversation with them. And a few minutes later, Johnny Rotten went walking by, and you saw the handful of kids go following him towards the bus, and he went to go sign autographs and take pictures with whoever wanted autographs or anything. And I thought about it for a minute, but I was having so much fun just nerding out with Lou about what kind of pedals he uses and what kind of guitar amps and things, that I thought, oh, well, yeah, it'd be cool to meet one of the Sex Pistols, but when am I ever going to get a chance to have this good of a conversation with any of the other members of that band? Like the conversation I'm having now with Lou on the street. So I ended up foregoing the chance to meet Johnny Rotten from Sex Pistols, and because I like nerding out about guitar equipment so much with people.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
I feel you on that one.
But yeah, that Devo stuff is that's going to be fun to listen to. I want to check that out, and that Pogues Joe Strummer live album too. That looks really good.
It looks good.
I'm very excited too about the Sunny Day Real Estate 7-inch that you picked up for me.
Oh yeah,
down here. I couldn't find those anywhere in Sacramento. I'm so glad you found one of those down here in the Bay Area. If for no other reason than like the song on the other side is by Circa Survive, who are a band I don't really have an opinion about one way or the other. I just don't follow them actively, but I love Sunny Day Real Estate.
Okay.
And I'm so excited that they're releasing material, and this year is the 20th anniversary of their first album, Diary. I'm really hoping between the 20th anniversary of that and this new 7-inch with Circa Survive that maybe Sunny Day Real Estate will reunite and do a couple of shows, and I'd love to see them live again before too much time passes and everything.
But it sounds like there's something brewing.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Is that a new recording of the 7-inch?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not entirely to be totally honest, I have not done my fair due diligence and looked up where the heck this recording came from. I need to figure that out, but I think it's a new recording.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm excited either way to check that out.
Yeah. No, there were some awesome buys that day. I'm actually particularly interested in hearing the lullaby versions of David Bowie songs.
Oh yes, that too. That'll be good too. I know we both have these seriously big piles of vinyl now that are sitting there taunting us in the other room that we have to block off time for and listen to later.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm very excited too. I've been apprehensive, almost like a First Communion style. I haven't actually played any of them yet. I've been setting up my record player. I'm getting ready to transfer vinyl. I've been just kind of really nerding out on trying to find, any from how best to clean the record to what sample rate to use when recording to if I like which audio interface I want to use, or if I want to just go direct into the sound card. So yeah, I've been getting a lot of useless information and trying to make some use out of it.
It's not useless. It's good stuff. I live for that information.
It's just wading through the morass of information though, and trying to figure out what is useful. But no, it is. You're totally right. It is useful.
We're actually sitting in front of the stereo you've been hooking up lately, right?
Yeah.
This is it. Yeah. So you want to describe what you've got going on here?
Sure. So I have so the turntable itself is a Technics SL 1600 Mark II. It's essentially the same as your DJ favorites, the SL 1200 Mark IIs. It's a direct drive turntable. It's essentially the same internals. The major difference is that it's a fully automatic, made for the home, Scotch sipping, cigar smoking guy in 7980 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think they only made this model in 1979 and 80. It was an eBay find. Probably 13 years ago. I think I got it in 2001 for $100 delivered.
Nice.
Fantastic condition. The desk cover was cracked, so I retrofitted a 1200 Mark II desk cover onto it, but it looks good. I have a Stanton Groove Master 2 cartridge that I paid a pretty penny for with an elliptical diamond, so not good for scratching or anything like that, which was not my intention. I just want to play vinyl.
You mean like DJ scratching, like the...
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. If you are planning on becoming a DJ, from what I understand, and you're going to be you're going to be scratching of any sort, or back cueing or anything like that, you typically, from what I understand, want a spherical diamond. But I got an elliptical one, which is more for audiophile playback. And there's some arguments that say, there are arguments that audiophiles prefer a belt drive to isolate the motor noise from, as opposed to a direct drive, which the Technics is. But I like the direct drive. I don't notice much noise, and you just get accurate speed. Sounds great. And that's going into my Denon receiver, an AVR 3802. Really nice, fairly higher-end receiver for its time. It's probably in the ballpark of 15 years or more old at this point. But it's got some... it's just got a lot of nice components in it. I couldn't really tell you much of what it has off the top of my head, but I'm playing that, or that's powering my I have some electrostatic speakers. They are Martin Logan's, and I don't remember the name. And I also have a Velodyne sub, Velodyne from San Jose. So it's a nice fairly approaching audiophile setup. I used to have some tube monoblocks that I would power the electrostatic speakers with, but I haven't moved those from Santa Cruz yet, and it's just like every year and a half to 2 years, I'm dropping like $200 in new power tubes and stuff. And so kind of it became economically unviable for me at the time. I might get back into it, or I think I'd probably, when it comes to mono blocks, I'll probably look for some simpler setup than what I had before. I had these TAD 1000 mono blocks that were made by a guy named Busy Bee somewhere in the Midwest, and they were fantastic. But they just have a gang of tubes, and
These are like power conditioners or something. These monoblock things, or
no, they're
power amp.
They're power amps. So they would, instead of using the power from the Denon would just be a preamp, and it would just send the signal to the monoblocks, and the monoblocks would actually power the electrostatic speakers.
Okay.
And you get a really rich sound. You can swap out your sound tube. So it was a 12AX7, and I swapped it out and tried different 12AX7s, tried to find one that had a real good resolution, real good sound, and you can geek out on that, and you can drop hundreds and thousands of dollars in that stuff. And
oh god, yeah, buying high-end stereo equipment is like a never-ending money pit. If you want it to be, you can draw a line in the sand somewhere, or you can just keep infinitely buying higher and higher end gear. I was just watching a video from the website Analog Planet. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's another site for like vinyl nerds and whatever. And the guy that runs it has a stereo with similar kind of setup with a turntable and a nice preamp and a nice power amp and really nice speakers. And I don't think he ever got into the detail of what the components are, but you see him walk into the room and start to play a record before he describes whatever he's describing in the video.
Yeah.
And he says, oh yeah, this setup we're listening to right now is $75,000 worth of equipment, $100,000, some crazy amount of money on a turntable and speakers. It's just, I mean, I like my high-end gear and everything. I like my stuff to sound good, but the guy literally spent as much as you would spend on a small house for his turntable and speakers. It's ridiculous.
Unless, of course, he lived in the Midwest. That is probably what you would spend on a decent house.
Yeah, it's a whole... You can go very quickly down a serious rabbit hole of spending money on this stuff.
It's very true. I mean, the of all the components that I have, like I guess I shouldn't say the speakers themselves, but as far as my receiver and my turntable and my various other bits here and there, they don't sum to the cost of just the monoblock amps that I have. Those are about $1,400, and I got them used.
Yikes.
So yeah, and then like I said, every year and a half to 2 years, you're dropping another $200 on a new, 8 more power amps.
Right.
Well,
you're dropping that much money on it. I think the mere mortals are not doing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing with audiophile equipment is like you can get something that sounds marginally better, but sometimes there's diminishing returns on how much money you have to throw at it. And I does a $75,000 system sound amazing? Yeah, but
does the average Joe listener notice the difference in that and a $300 system that they bought at Fry's?
Well, yeah, the average Joe may not, but actually, if the system is worth its salt, even I think even an average Joe would. But I think once you get somewhere above a few thousand in your home system, and this is obviously take this with a grain of salt, but at some point, does it sound better? Yes. Does it sound $70,000 better?
Yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah, right.
Unless obviously you have money to burn, which we don't, and why we're here.
There is that. Yep. Okay, so you got the turntable going to the Denon, and then you've been experimenting with going out of the basically going from vinyl down to digital lately through various means of AD conversions, right?
Exactly. I kind of wanted to take a few approaches. I haven't done it yet, but I've been doing some test recordings. I have so far bypassed the Denon, so I'm not using the phono preamp and the Denon. I've just been using various audio interfaces into my Mac laptop. One of them is an old MOTU Mark of the Unicorn 896. This is the old model. It's not the HD or the HD Mark II or 3 or
I think the only difference in that the MOTU 896 and the HD was the one you and I have. The 896 does 24-bit up to 96 kilohertz resolution, and I think the HD does 24-bit 192 resolution.
Right.
Which that's even beyond me. I'm all for the record at a higher bit rate and bit depth and resolution, and then dump it down later.
Yeah.
But even I don't record at 192 for anything. That just
and I mean, for the vinyl transfer, I mean, I did a lot of geeking out recently in the past few weeks, and I was just reading different. I mean, it was mostly different forum posts and whatnot. But some people had some references to back up on the web. But I kind of resolved that I'm just going to record at 44.1.
24-bit.
I'm actually doing 32-bit float, which I guess is essentially 24-bit with some extra padding. I'm doing 32-bit float. So I want to be able to do any kind of restoration, like removing clicks and whatnot, or any kind of gain. Adding any gain while it's 32-bit, and then just mix down to 16 at the end. But I don't want to mess with the sample rate conversion. There's the argument that says, I could record at 88.2 or, something like that nature, and the math still works out pretty good. But in the end, I kind of ended up shying away from it just because 44.1 is more than sufficient, from what I understand, to resolve pretty much the entire range of human hearing, far beyond what I probably can hear at compared to what I could have heard out of the womb. So too many punk shows, Brubaker shows later, but
yeah.
Yeah, I had a good argument, and there was a couple of good arguments that I came across that said if you're recording these other sounds, these much higher frequency sounds that we can't hear, they can still affect the sounds that are within our range of hearing. And so I figured, let's just narrow the focus on the band, the frequency range that the human ears can hear. And I mean, I'm not recording Sepultura or Alison Krauss or anything like that. I'm just trying to take some of my old vinyl and make as best a recording of it as I can. And if I can take something out of the process too, and I feel like sample rate conversion that can get dodgy. You can introduce a lot of noise and jitter by doing that, and I'd rather keep the sample rate at 44.1 for myself. But I definitely want a bigger word length, 32-bit for now, and then I'll just mix down to 16-bit so I can put it on my iPod or play it through the electrostats at home.
Right. I usually record. I do 44.1 kilohertz as well, but I usually record at 24-bit for everything, and then dump it down to 16 during the mix down or post-production mastering process, depending on what it is I'm doing. And that's really great. Not for any reason at all involving, like, I disagree with you about 32-bit or anything. It really was just, I learned how to record doing it that way. That was when I took audio classes. Yeah. They recorded it in class at 24-bit and then dumped it to 16 later. And I'm like, okay, well, and just in the class, they went over the math of how that works and went, okay, well, now I understand why 24-bit is actually not just 8 bits better than 16-bit. It's actually like orders of magnitude and exponentially, greater resolution and things. But okay, so I can do that. And I guess using that same math, 32-bit would be even better. I just never bothered clicking that button on the thing. Well, no, I know why it was. It's because I use that same MOTU 896 to record everything, and I don't think that does 32-bit, does it?
It does not, actually. Yeah. The MOTU only does 24-bit,
right, but that's why, then.
Since I'm using it as a sound card in the computer, it depends on your digital audio workstation, whatever you're using, and that can actually, that can set its own clock. And so, that's for the sample rate. For the bit depth, it can just pad zeros. So even though the signal coming in is only 24 bits, it adds basically. And now I'll give you a quick caveat here. I'm also a middle school math teacher. So essentially all those extra bits give you room to carry, like when something doesn't divide out evenly and you end up with all those numerical, like your calculator only shows 10 digits,
Right.
and you say, oh, well, it's 3.14159, and that's it. And
62535.
yeah, that's it. See? But yeah, it keeps on going, and it keeps on going forever. And if you don't maintain those decimal places to forever, then you're going to introduce noise. And then that's where the concept of dither comes from. It's like, okay, well, let's push all that noise somewhere below the range of human hearing. And they say that healthy human ears can hear a dynamic range of up to about 20 bits deep. So our standard recordings or standard CD formats and stuff, even though they're 16-bit, they don't necessarily represent the full potential of dynamic range of human hearing. In theory, it would be great if we had 20-bit CDs and playback equipment and stuff. But in the end, it's not entirely necessary. They've found ways to kind of fake it. So, the first 15 bits are essentially, your dynamic headroom there. You get a lot of dynamics in there. And then that last 16th bit somewhere in there, they just shove all those little numbers and those little, where you get your rounding error, and they just essentially dither all that noise down into the bottom part of the 16th bit.
Right.
And so yeah, having 32-bit is not going to sound better than 24-bit, especially if I'm using a device that is only recording at 24-bit. But it affords me some essentially more scratch paper for the math, so that I can try to maintain as accurate a number as possible when mixing down. Yeah.
And what's that silver box you have down there too that looks like you were recording with?
Okay, so the silver one on top I borrowed from a good friend of mine, Peter, and it's called the Apogee Duet. And it's another FireWire interface, and it actually, I think, also does 24-bit 96 kilohertz.
Okay, so same as the MOTU.
Yes, essentially same as a MOTU, and
it's just two in, two out.
Yeah, two mic level in and two line level in, and two. I think it's just two line level out. I haven't used those, but yeah, I piped the Techniques. I piped it directly into the MOTU, and then the MOTU via FireWire into my MacBook. And I also did the same with the. I piped the Techniques directly into the Duet, and then the Duet into the MacBook, and I compared those. I also got some cheap $20 Behringer sound card to try that out too, and compare them all. And
what did you find out?
Well, what I found out was, I guess it's not really surprising, but you get what you pay for. And I didn't get any more dynamic range out of any one of the devices, but with the MOTU, I was able to get a very, very loud signal, loud enough that I didn't have to add any gain to it later on. Whereas with the Duet, I did have to add some gain, and the noise floor, just the general digital noise floor of the MOTU was the lowest. The Duet was pretty low too. The Behringer was pretty loud, unfortunately. I
think most people that I've talked to think the Behringer stuff is on. Usually, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah,
there's very few pieces of Behringer gear I've ever heard anyone say, "Oh, I love that Behringer," or whatever. And
well, fair enough. I mean, the Behringer cost me $20. The Duet brand new was probably $500, and the MOTU brand new was about $1,200. So
yeah, But man, those MOTU boxes are so cool, though. I have one. I didn't pay that much for it. I must have bought mine after the prices had gone down.
Yeah.
I still paid, enough money for it to where I was nervous, but
yeah,
I've recorded a bunch of bands with that MOTU in my studio, and I don't know if you noticed this at all with the conversion work you were doing, but when I recorded drums on the MOTU, my God, those preamps sound good.
Yeah.
I just love the way that thing, it doesn't sound digital or weird or anything. Just, we'd plug mics straight into the back of that MOTU. Yeah. I would do like 6 mics on the drum kit or maybe 8, and that thing, it screams. I'm kind of annoyed that the buttons are on the back for the changing between like line level and mic level.
Right.
I really wish they were on the front like the rest of the knobs are, but
That'd be a bit more intuitive. But
that thing, it sounds so good.
Yeah, regardless, no, it does. I actually had this sitting at a good friend of mine's house for a while, so that he could record his drums. And
Okay.
he was going into, like a 2002 Mac G4, like the first G4 tower.
Yep.
And man, the thing sounds amazing. I mean, going into Audacity, so it's like free software, cheap computer.
Well, yeah, because the converters in that Motu it does all the magic in there and just sends it out. It's digital by the time it leaves that box, and the converters in there are so good that it doesn't matter what you record on the Mac or whatever. I wasn't using an old Mac, but I was using an old Windows PC to record drums and stuff in my studio for the longest time with that box. And yeah, you'd never know. You would never notice anything because it's such a cool machine.
It is. It's pretty amazing. It's a rack mount device, so it's not the prettiest if you don't have a rack mount setup. But it's still it's just a lot of workhorse or unicorn.
What were you saying before about? So before we started recording, you were mentioning you were listening to the Louis Armstrong record, which is mono.
Yeah.
And you were getting some different results converting a mono record down to digital than you were the stereo records because of how the stylus shifts back and forth.
So, my needle is a stereo, it's a stereo cartridge, and I'm playing a mono record on a stereo cartridge. Essentially, what ends up happening is that the stereo cartridge picks up noise in the groove wall that isn't meant to be resolved or reproduced
on the mono records
from a mono record, because the assumption is if you're playing a mono record, you're using a mono needle, and it just disregards that. It's essentially phase noise,
like as the needle shifts from left to right in the groove of the record.
Exactly. Well, the beauty of it is that you can actually since it is phase noise, it can be canceled out, and I've came across two ways to do it. One is, again, the El Cheapo, go down to Radio Shack and get a Y connector, with the two female RCAs on one end, that just go down to a male RCA on the other end. So you essentially just sum the two tracks in analog.
So you're going like out the Denon preamp, out left and right, and then just going into like a Y connector that goes straight into one channel on your Apogee or Motu or whatever?
Well, actually, I routed the techniques directly into the sound card, so I wasn't using the phono preamp of the Denon, which is an important consideration, because for those of you who have transferred records, you know that records are recorded with an RIAA equalization curve. And so what happens is if you record the record without running it through a phono preamp, it sounds really tinny and trebly with very low bass, and that's essentially so that they could get more grooves on the record and record a longer program. But so you want to run your records through a phono preamp, which will reverse or apply the inverse of the RIAA equalization curve, and then that'll fatten out the bottom end, get rid of a lot of the hissy noise on the top end, and make it sound the way it was intended to sound. I didn't actually run it through the Denon's phono preamps because I'm going to test a variety of phono preamps next. I haven't gotten to that point yet. But I just wanted to run the raw sound into the sound cards and get an idea of what I get out. And
so you went out the left and rights directly out of the turntable into this Y cable, and then went straight into the Apogee or the Motu or whatever.
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. And so getting back to the mono versus stereo, or the mono situation, I did the analog version, which was just running through this RCA Y connector. And then instead, I also ran the stereo inputs, to compare. I ran the stereo inputs both into the Motu and the Apogee, and then I summed them digitally. I was using Adobe Audition, but you can do that with anything. And
the summing algorithms are all pretty much the same, I think, at that point.
Yeah. And when you sum them, that phase noise essentially cancels itself out, and so you regain all of. Or you lose all of that noise, and you regain, all of this these dynamics that are lost if you take a mono recording and record it into a stereo workstation or to a stereo file. And I did comparison. I did some ABX testing, and I found out that although the $6 solution, the cable sounds good, it actually sounds kind of warm and natural. And I don't want to say muddy, but it did seem a bit colored. When I did it, when I summed it digitally using the software, I got nearly a 3 decibel increase from the noise floor to the actual program.
So an increase in volume or an increase in just
and headroom
noise
or dynamics. So yeah, so basically there was nearly 3 decibels more of resolution. So I could, I have more dynamic room to work with, less noise from the original recording. Granted, this recording is from 1956, and so there's a lot of noise on it, but
this is the one you're talking about here, this Louis Armstrong and Earl Hines Volume 3?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was using the Basin Street Blues track, just using it as a reference. It's nice, starts off quiet, has some loud instruments on it, some loud brass, and vocals, and I felt it was a good track to test on, and also figure out how I'm gonna do my workflow for recording mono records into using a stereo cartridge.
Right.
And so yeah, I've resolved to bypass the cable and just sum it digitally inside the workstation, and it does. It's more transparent, so if it's a crappy recording, it's gonna sound crappy, but I'd rather, instead of coloring the sound, I'd rather get as close to the original sound as I can and then work from there.
Right. And you can always apply effects later to try to warm things up. They make enough tube saturation emulators and things for like Audition and Pro Tools and all those that
exactly.
If you really like the sound of that Y cable, merging it together in an analog way, you could do that after the fact, once you've done the summing, if you really wanted to for some reason.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you try any other converters? We got the Apogee and the MOTU and the Behringer.
Yeah, I tried the Behringer.
The Behringer one just had a really, really weak signal and didn't really even come through super well.
Yeah, exactly.
What's this one?
And I tried the M Audio Firewire Solo too, and for some reason that takes only line level inputs too, but I couldn't even get any signal off of it. Whereas with the $20 Behringer, I was actually able to get some signal, and I was able to apply gain. But yeah, with the M Audio Firewire Solo, I really couldn't get anything. So, but thanks to my buddy Matt for letting me borrow it anyways.
Right. I have not tried any of the M Audio stuff. I see the name all the time at like Guitar Center and things, and I think they were somehow affiliated with the Pro Tools DigiDesign stuff at one point. Like that was
the same, yeah.
Consumer end line, and then the Pro Tools and Digi branded things were meant for more studio and professional grade buyers. But I'm prosumer to professional. Yeah, I might totally be making that up. I'll have to go back and double check my notes.
It sounds like it to me, although I'm not as versed in recording hardware. But
okay, so MOTU, Apogee, M Audio, the Behringer one.
Yeah. So and then I'm now the latest test has been I recorded using a software called Vinyl Studio on the Mac. I think it's available on Windows, possibly Linux distributions too. It's a nice software intended for dubbing vinyl, and they actually have built-in RIAA equalization curve built in, so I can go direct from the record player and then apply the equalization in software. So it's pretty nice, and the really nice thing is I don't have this situation as far as I know. Maybe save for some old Colombian or Chilean records from my parents, but if you have any records pressed before 1956 or 54, there was no standardization of these equalization curves. So depending on who the manufacturer was, they could have their own equalization curve. And this software has like a gang of stuff. I think I saw some Bolivian national equalization curves or something. I'm thinking I might be making that up, but they have like all kinds of, you can look up, this is a Columbia recording from 1938 and it's a 78, and the software can handle it. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to I'm just using the trial version right now, but it's only like $30 or $40. So.
And what's that called again?
Vinyl Studio.
Okay. Who makes that?
I don't actually know the name.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
but
look
you
it
could
up.
definitely search for Vinyl Studio and it'll come up. And
Right on.
Yeah, it's cross-platform as far as I know.
Cool.
And yeah, you can tell they're very geeky about the record recording, and they make it easy. It can determine when the needle drops and selecting
Nice.
tracks, and I think it can even look up metadata for you on the record. And so
Right on.
I haven't even begun to explore it, but I'm going to compare that with the Phono preamp that's in my Denon, and compare that with the Phono preamp of this J33 box by Radial. It's meant for more like DJs that tour and on stage. It's a really high-end, performance Phono preamp. And then there's another one called it's made by ART, A-R-T, and it's USB. It's some kind of USB interface. I might try that one out too. And just
I've seen
compare
their preamps before, but I don't think I've seen any of their USB interfaces.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, what's your take on their preamps? Do you have any opinion?
The little bit that I've used 2 or 3 different ones, and I don't remember specifics of which one sounded better than the other. I remember a lot of it being pretty reasonably priced. It was sort of that prosumer grade stuff too. I just saw an ART preamp. Where was I? Somebody had one. Oh, when my band recorded in the studio Wednesday or Thursday night, I think he had an ART preamp sitting there.
Okay.
We didn't end up using it for anything. He had something else we ran into instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're inexpensive, decent quality preamps. They seems like the people that use them like them enough. I don't think they get the same cred or hype as the crazy high end stuff like Universal Audio and Neumann or anything like of that price range. But yeah, they work fine for different things. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on how their converter works and what it does with the vinyl.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what if the the Radial J33 is about a $200 phono preamp. The ART one, which the name eludes me right now, that one is about $80. My Denon receiver was built into the receiver. I think it was probably brand new. The whole receiver was probably about $1,000, but I got it used. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll compare the phono preamps, compare that to just adding in the equalization curve in software too, and I'll do some ABX testing. So.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good stopping point. While we started recording this, a couple people showed up, and we're gotta get ready to go make the drive up to Santa Rosa now to go watch the mighty Brubaker tonight.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be good. I think I mentioned them in the last 2 episodes of the podcast as well. So if by some random coincidence they actually listen to these, they'll probably think I'm stalking them or something because their name keeps popping up in each one. It's like, well, because you and I are going to go watch them tonight, and the last one I recorded with my friend Tony, and he lives in Sacramento, and Brubaker, half the guys are from Sacramento, so somehow they came up in conversation just about local bands and... So anyway,
well, they'll definitely know you're stalking them because you're with me.
Exactly. Oh, that too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they can, but they'll spot you before they'll spot me. Yeah, they know who you are. I'm still just the dude that comes to shows with you. So I've got that stalker buffer before they'll come press charges on in my direction. They'll start with arresting you and then go from there. Okay, why don't we stop there then?
Sounds great.
And
Nolan. Thanks
cool.
for having me.
Thanks, Maurice. I appreciate it. Good night.